Okay. And it says we are live on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't, redirecting to Facebook Live.
Greg, I was hoping we'd have a sing-along this morning.
Yep, it's up there. I can see it.
Okay.
I could pull a guitar down and do Mike Kirshner blues for you.
Mike, ready? Ready, Mike? Da, da, na, na. Da, 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 da. Fill in the blank, Shano.
Yeah, you don't get this at every commissioner meeting, I tell you that.
We have fun in our meetings.
Somewhere along the line, Craig, the line was, my wife said, you got to choose between me and fishing. And then the question is, what time's the fishing boat leave? That's the down hard.
No, no, no.
The fishing blues.
I think our record's on, our Facebook Live's on.
All right, we're going to pull this off.
We're about ready.
Good. Let's call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Commissioner Thomas,
Here.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Here.
Commissioner Kirshner.
Here.
Commissioner Kirshner, do you have a prayer for us today?
Sure. We'll continue on with our prayer of unity here. We've said the last couple of weeks. Please, let's get in a prayerful mood. Almighty God, our rock and our salvation, we beg you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon our fractured nation. Heal the divisions that separate us and remove all obstacles to authentic unity. May you guide this great country of ours and lead our citizens to embrace one another as neighbors and fellow countrymen, created in your own image and likeness. Give us a fresh opportunity for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our homeland. May we return to our true identity as a people of faith and charity. Help us to always remain one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. I'll accept a motion to approve the digital audio video recording of the previous board session.
I will
So moved. Well, second it. Tony seconds.
Jinx. Roll call.
Commissioner Kirshner,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes. All right. Administrator report.
Just a couple things. Budget Commission on Tuesday approved or certified the funding for the CARES Act. We got confirmation yesterday that it is here. It's been deposited. Julie is reaching out to the subdivisions. There's only, I think, 4 that have submitted their resolutions. She cannot give them their disbursement until she receives a copy of their resolution. So I know she was going to reach out. I think Charlene, she already sent out an email reminding each entity that they needed to do the resolution to get their money to get started. So that's good news. I sat through training yesterday. I know Julie was on it, Charlene was on it. We need to kind of get together and talk about it a little bit. They did get some updated frequently asked questions from the Treasury during our meeting. So there's some new guidance coming out. some of it's a little confusing, you know, clear as mud, but I want to sit down and go over it with Julie and, you know, Charlene, and make sure we're all on the same page and understand what's going on. I reached out to Mike Ditto with a couple questions too. So hopefully we can start moving forward with getting some of our stuff moving, getting some of our stuff covered. I also want to say congratulations to Nikki Smith. She's not looking at me. 10-year anniversary was over the weekend, and I want to thank her for hanging in with us, me for 10 years. It's definitely been an interesting ride, and I hope she stays with us for a long time. And I want to say congratulations and thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Ben, did you have any responsibility in hiring Nikki? Were you around when that happened?
Yes, Commissioner. I happily participated in hiring Nikki. So you got a good one there. She always does a great job for you guys. And yeah, her and Stacy were definitely very good hires on my part. Just to show you my brilliance there.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, we wanted to point that out. We wanted to point
The county benefits from, still benefiting.
And I think that's all I had.
Stacy, if you said a number, I didn't hear it. You said the money was deposited. How much was the money?
The county's portion was a little over 900,000.
Okay.
The total deposited for us and the entities was just a little over 2 million.
Okay, so that number held up. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure of that. And we have been keeping track of COVID-related expenses within the county. And as far as we know, that number is somewhere north of 800,000.
Julie sent an update yesterday on salaries and the day before on supplies. And it looks like we're sitting maybe about 500,000 maybe. We've got to double check those expenses. Those did not include unemployment yet. She's got to get those numbers. Those are always delay, paid, billed. So we don't have those numbers yet, but.
And are the dates still what they have been? That is October 28th. The money's got to be used by, and earned if it's not used by December or the end of the year.
They said October 15th needs to be spent. Otherwise, it will come back to the county for redistribution.
Okay.
And then that redistribution, you have until the paperwork says the 30th, but they keep saying December 28th. It needs to be returned to OBM. There will be we have to have all of the expenses paid. We can't have a project going to finish up in January. Everything has to be done by the end. So.
And was there any discussion yesterday about the rest of the money and loosening the restrictions as far as being able to use it for operating income?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Mike, just to add on to comment on your comment, yes, this is good news. We received the money. We do have COVID-related expenses that have been tagged and entered into our system. There's still some gray area as to what our definition of the COVID-related expenses and what the Fed's definition is. So we continue to work through that going forward, but just want everyone to know on the call that yes, we have this money, and yes, we are tracking our COVID expenses, but we don't have that money we haven't been reimbursed directly that money yet. We have to go through a few more steps. So I'll just leave it at that as we play things out going forward.
Okay.
Because there is a chance that even though we received all this money, we won't be reimbursed up to that total by the end of the year. There is that possibility. And so I just want to let that go on the record for that.
Yeah, just to extend Commissioner Paradiso's remarks, we have expenses that were unbudgeted that are being reimbursed by this COVID money. So that is the utilization of this money. So new expenses that we did not anticipate. So that's where that's at. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Paradiso.
I have a few things. We're going to talk about the sewer. So the airport project, we mentioned last week that the taxiway resurfacing project had a setback. Kylie from our office has been in contact with Brad Newman. I've been involved. It's a bigger problem than we thought. And basically the subsurface of the taxiway was worse than expected. So now we've gone through some testing, going through some pricing, and we will be going back to the FAA to see if, basically it's a change order. It's a contingency. We will be going back to them to see if they will pick up the cost to rectify that and then complete the taxiway. So at this point, testing's been done. Pricing to repair, I believe, is in, and we're at that phase. So in the meantime, Seneca County taxiway is closed, and I feel confident that it's moving forward. I'm not sure how it's going to end, but they're doing everything they can at this point.
Tony, I just want to know if Nutter was commissioner when we paved that taxiway the first time and he didn't get the basin right.
They didn't put the basin right. That's a good question, Ben.
I think that was before Ben.
Oh, okay.
So I'll so that's under. I'd like to bring up. I don't know if Mike Diddle's on the call now. That's okay if you are, but I'm talking to the two commissioners and Stacy on this topic. But I'd like to revisit our contract with Mike's group and others. I think we cut all our contracts, and then we said we would revisit them at the end of June. And I'm not sure what that means, but at some point I'd like to talk about that, Shane and Mike. When it comes to Falls Story Economic Development, the ones I was directly involved with Ohio State Extension, we have agreements in place with their cuts to take us to the end of the year. With the Ditto group, that's just kind of indefinite. And I think TSEP and others that are kind of hanging out there, we either need to extend where we're at with them or try to take us to the end of the year. So that's a loose end. I think Mike's doing a nice job for us, and I'd like us to, I don't know what that means, but I'd like to revisit his arrangement.
Well, Tony, I don't want to interrupt in the middle of your report, but my input on that would be, I think that we probably need a work session next week, let's say at 9 o'clock, and cover COVID costs to get a handle on exactly where we're at with what people have shown as their costs, to see if we can expand on that, and to also talk about those contracts and other issues that we might have regarding budget. So It's worth the conversation. I think it's imperative that we nail down the COVID costs and get more specific, so that we will approach using the number that we've been allotted. But we're not going to be able to do that unless we get everybody together and have that conversation. So that needs to happen.
Okay. And
yeah, I just to, while we're on that topic, Tony, I agree. And I would be content to have you take a look at all those contracts and come to us with a recommendation. It's very difficult to do it with 3 of us. My only thought is that, I would like to prioritize bringing our staffing levels up first, in August, and get our employees taken care of and our personnel back to full time before we address contracts. I think that's only fair. But
I think that's cool.
I'm looking more at something that would start in the August timeframe. Commissioner Kirshner's made the point that we can budget according to anticipated revenue, and we're starting to get a firmer feel for that. So I think that works.
Yeah, and I think my biggest thing was just a process to get there. It's just an open-ended. I think that'll work out good. So do we want to have a work session next week? Is that how we would go about this, Shane?
Yeah, we can certainly have a work session next week before the meeting and have it
Yeah.
at 9. It would be a public meeting. No decisions would be made, and we can start laying the groundwork for how we're going to, I guess, refund some of our activities.
We may want to extend that to the following week, because I would like Julie to be included. And because of the 4th of July, all of our offices are being open on different days. The RTA building said they will be closed on the 2nd. So, I'd like Julie's input, since we're going to get into talking about some of the COVID expenses, as she's going to be responsible for it too. Just a suggestion. We can do it with just us if that's what you'd like, but I know their building is going to be closed. So.
Yeah, that's a good catch. So let's plan on a week from Thursday. Was that the 11th or the?
Yeah, I think it's good that we meet, but I don't want to get the we are a little bit early in the financial process, maybe, to make some of these bigger. But I think we could frame up what we would need to know and what our priorities are. I like how you said that, Shane.
Yeah,
we get a feel for priorities as we do unwind and start to open things up. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, July the 9th is the date, and yes, I think it's great that the auditor would be involved, because she's got a lot of the information that we need. So I don't know if it should be a separate session or part of our regular board meeting, but I'm okay with the morning of the 9th.
Okay. That's all I have. Shane?
All right, Commissioner Kirshner?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many folks from TSUP are on the line, so I don't want to steal their thunder towards the end, but we did have a meeting yesterday morning, and things are rolling for them. And that's a good thing. I'll give a little more detail if they're not on the line, but again, I probably are, and we'll let them talk at the end here. I also have a proclamation to enter into the record. This is the proper time, Chairman.
Yes.
Okay. So the proclamation states, whereas John Detweiler was born and raised in Tiffin, Ohio, where he later left to work in sales and marketing. In 2009, John and his wife Linda returned to Tiffin, where he became the president and CEO of the Tiffin Chamber of Commerce. And whereas Mr. Detweiler has been influential in the revitalization of Tiffin, including Tiffin Tomorrow, an unveiling of downtown strategic strategy in 2010. John has also implemented events for the chamber, such as the Seneca County Farmers Market in downtown, that was also established in 2010. For 11 years, Mr. Detweiler changed the direction of the chamber, starting the new name, Seneca Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Services. And whereas John Detweiler has been an instrumental part of the Seneca County community by promoting growth in and around Tiffin and increasing the visitors within the county, therefore be it resolved that this Board of Commissioners, Seneca County, Ohio, be and it does hereby commend, honor, and thank John Detweiler for his 11 years of loyal and dedicated service to the Tiffin Area Chamber of Commerce, Seneca County Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. So we, the Board of Seneca County Commissioners, have hereunto set our hand to this proclamation this 25th day of June, in the year of our Lord, 2020. I'd like to enter that into the record and present that to John at some point.
He's on the call this morning. I see his name.
Oh,
John, would you like to say a few words?
I made him co-host so he can
And,
unmute if he
and
wants.
I want to add to that, I really appreciate, John was very welcoming to me when I became elected official, and I really appreciated his guidance. So, you know, a number of initiatives that he put forward will forever impact our community, the branding, and a lot of other things. So I really appreciate John's leadership.
yeah, it's a great example, of an individual who had his career, came back and gave back to Tiffin in Seneca County, and for that I am very grateful. I think John just wanted to listen in today, so
Okay.
we'll say to him, thank you very much, and Godspeed, John. And thanks to Linda as well, because she was certainly as a large part of
Huge part.
the activities that happened.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, that was a twofer. We got them both.
Yes, we did.
All right. Yeah. So we have a meeting scheduled for what was that date, Mike? The 9th?
Night, yes.
All right. That'll be President Kirshner's deal. So if you want to start that at 9 or 10 and keep it part of a work session, we'll follow your lead on that. So if you'll put that out.
I think, we'll go at 9 o'clock on that Thursday.
Okay. All right. Old business. None. New business. Stacy.
New business. Looks like the first one on the agenda is the new Regal Sewer. I don't know, Tony, if you want to explain anything, I can read the title.
Go ahead and read it.
Authorizing the agreement with TD Engineering for the new Regal Sewer District feasibility study on behalf of the Seneca County engineer. The cost of this is $2,544, which will be paid by the sewer district.
Yes, this is a study that is the next step in the progression for the village and the sewer district to make a decision whether they want to build their own plant and what type of plant that would be, and the payback and costs related to that. So this is a study. Mark knows the people real well, has a lot of faith in them. It's very reasonably priced. And the village council unanimously endorsed this next step. So I support this 100% and looking forward to the results of the study, actually. Do we need a motion, or is this just an FYI?
We have the resolution, so yes, motion.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we approve the resolution as Stacy read it.
Second.
Any discussion? How is the funding of this study?
It's going to be paid for out of the sewer district money.
And he has money available?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Kirshner,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes. All right. Other new business.
I think Nikki, you wanted to bring up the Township Association?
Yeah, I keep getting questions from the Township Association, whether Mike and Shane are going to fill out their application to be a part of that again next year. Shane, I kind of figured you weren't going to.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I plan on being a member.
Okay.
Did I not fill it out?
I guess not.
Okay.
That means
But
I must have filled it out.
Yeah, I can. Get that
It's been 7 or 8 years for me, so yeah, I'm happy to fill it out and send it in. We're talking $15 or something. Is that what we're?
Yep. If you guys just want to send your check in, I can fill out the application and send it to Matt today.
Okay, I'll wait till payday and I'll send her in.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yep.
Keeping us straight. All right, other new business.
Yes, and I have a few supplemental appropriations, and a couple of these are from juvenile probate court. So Teresa was kind enough to join us in case you had any questions on these. I'll go ahead and read them. I have a supplemental appropriation for the purchase of a transport van. Program is alternative to detention. It's a 2024 Transit. This is for the Delinquent Care and Custody Fund. $31,347 into their equipment line. I have a supplemental appropriation for $220.39 into contract services, and this is the probate court conduct business fund. And the description says nuclear tempered glass for courtroom table with labor. The next one I have is a supplemental appropriation for the Delinquent Care and Custody Grant Fund for $1,858 into equipment. This is for new computer software accessories. The next one I have, not that one. In the last one I have for her would be supplemental appropriation to the Juvenile Program and Services Fund in the amount of $13,635 to the equipment line. And this is additional security door readers for the juvenile probate court to be installed by Torrance Sound. So she was very detailed in her descriptions, but if you had any more questions.
Okay. Teresa,
Hi, Teresa.
welcome. Thank you for taking the initiative on this. I know you guys are using those doors more frequently and keeping things locked up. My only question for that was that a COVID expense?
No, unfortunately not. We've been looking at this for a long time. I've applied for a couple grants. It's been a continuing problem here, not having fobs on those. So we've, saved funding in that one fund so we could, go forward with this. And that's really what we're doing. We have too many people entering in doors that are locked and shouldn't be.
That's not the right answer, Teresa. It was a COVID expense. Why'd that?
Okay, great. It was COVID all the way.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for the leadership on that and taking care of that yourselves. We really appreciate that. It means a lot to the cooperation that we always get from you folks.
Okay, much appreciated. We'll always work on it.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on the new business? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Nikki, roll call.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Two more left, real quick.
Okay.
I have the authorizing an amendment for the 4D service contract on behalf of the Seneca County Department of Job and Family Services. And I have the resolution accepting the resignation of Shane Thomas as board president and approving Mike Kirschner as board president effective July 1st, 2020, staying president until our reorganizational meeting beginning of 2021. Okay, I think
All
that's
right.
it.
Yeah. So I'm going to resign and then write a tell-all book and go on Fox News. So.
Sounds good.
Oh, you're still here with us. You're just resigning as president. So make that clear.
All right. Motion to accept the additional new business.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, Nikki.
Commissioner Kirschner,
yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes. Okay, we have a few minutes. So if there's anybody on the line that wants to make public comments before we go into the Gossman report, just in the interest of time, if there's somebody who came to say something.
Yeah, Commissioner Ben here. I'm sure that you guys are aware, and I'm sure Tony heard in the economic development meeting that the Community Improvement Corporation in Fostoria has distributed just under $300,000 in funding of the $600,000 that was placed in a fund for community improvement in the Fostoria area as part of our consent order. So there's all kinds of good, cool things that were funded. Thermal detection devices for Hopewell Loudon School. There was also some funding for the fire department to do some stuff, and that list is available. If you don't have it, I can forward that over to you.
Good. I'd like to see it, man.
Absolutely, I'll
that'd
send
be
that
great.
right over to you.
Thank
Yep.
you. Good job.
Any other, hit me up in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself if you can.
Teresa.
Yeah, hi. Again, maybe this will make Mike feel better. We did have a COVID expense of about $14,000 for a new video conferencing card. One way or another, we're hoping to get reimbursement for that. We have that through the grant working with Charlene, and also then would be listing on our COVID expenses. So as a $14,000 expense, really using the video conferencing here on both courts. So that's been great. And another comment, I love this format even after we get out of this this new normal. I do love being able to be on the commissioners meeting, even if I'm, don't have anything to say or anything, but just being able to listen and be in my office. So I hope it continues moving forward. So thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? I will open it up again at the end, but we're going to move into our guests. We have the Gossman Group. And just to remind everyone who is new to watching us, we started the process of evaluating our facilities under Commissioner Kirschner and his task force on facilities, and that's 4 or 5 years ago. And we decided to formalize that process and hire a consultant because there'd never been a master plan for facilities. And we have our South Campus, we have our downtown properties, and we have several other properties that don't fit on either one of those campuses. So it's been a several year long process, and we now have a comprehensive list of our facilities, their ages, their functionality. And so today is a culmination of 5 years of work really for Commissioner Kirschner and several years work of Craig Gossman. And we hope that this is a template for all future commissioners as they make strategic investments in properties and facilities that are county owned. And that way we give the best value to the taxpayers and the best working environments for our employees for the long term. So without further ado, Craig Gossman has a report, and I want to also thank Charlene and Regional Planning for their help and guidance for the past few years on this. This project wouldn't have been able to be completed without their help and assistance. and nothing gets done without John and Stacy as well. So they've been fantastic. So, Craig, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I will probably do screen share here and switch over, but kind of on the heels of what Shane had to say, I would certainly like to thank everyone that's made us feel welcome and been a part of this team. The time frame was delayed to some degree, just in terms of getting organized and getting information and getting it in proper formatting and so forth. But we muscled through all that, and I think we have a report that the commissioners can use certainly to help them inform future decision making. Certainly want to say a big thank you to Charlene Watkins for her help in organizing all of the meetings and the communications that had to go out to numerous people. And I know that she already had a full-time job. She didn't need another one at this point, but she did a great job in helping us navigate all that. And certainly Stacy and John chimed in as well, giving us tours and information. And then just a quick reach out to my own teammates. Encompass was our partner in this project, dealing with the engineering aspects of analysis of existing systems in the buildings and so forth. And certainly their work was commendable, and we're happy they were involved. And then my go-to right-hand person, Megan Caralambo, who's I believe on the call, but not on the screen. But Megan has to put up with me on a daily basis, but she did a great job keeping us kind of moving in the right direction. So I'm going to hit screen share here and go to the document, or I should say a reduced copy of the document. This is a PowerPoint presentation that I have just kind of taken. I see Tony's got his hat on, but it's on backwards right now. So I'm going to go to the screen here and kind of walk you through what I'm calling kind of like the highlight reel of this. So keep that in mind. There's a lot more to the document, and it's certainly available for review by others. And there are several appendix with that as well. So just real quickly, just to kind of get back to the organization of the document. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Got an introduction on how we arrived at where we're going in the process, and then the process itself, kind of recharting how we navigated that. And then county misspelled property orientation maps are in there. Office trends and standards, big ideas and recommendations. And then we have 2 appendix in the document as well that include all the inventory information, and also original building drawings that we formatted and brought forward, because in the past, I think there was a lot of rummaging through desks and under tables and down in basements to try to find the documents. So they're now at least organized and in the right place. As Shane mentioned, the process started for us anyway back in 2019 in February, and we navigated through a variety of activities, assessments, visits by our team on numerous occasions to buildings, internal discussions with our team on how we were trying to organize the information and make recommendation. And then certainly a lot of interface with county personnel, several brainstorming sessions in large gathering, and then individual meetings and discussions with the like as well, so that we could really gain as much information as we could about not just size, square footages, where things were located, but what's the workability, what's the environment, what's the culture like? Is there anything that could happen to these facilities in the future that might make work a little bit more pleasant in some areas, more efficient, and certainly taking consolidation of information into consideration in that as well, both electronically and physically. I guess just spanning back here and looking out as to why a county would want to do this, it's really to try to forecast, what to do with a real estate portfolio. At the end of the day, the county is government. but they own properties. Those properties are occupied primarily by the county. There is a certain amount of subleasing going on to a couple of agencies, but nonetheless, they're in the real estate business. And I think it was prudent on their part to want to look at that portfolio as real estate and ask themselves a variety of questions, some of which has to do with just what does the future hold in terms of growth and how Seneca County is positioned for the future within the state of Ohio and so forth. There's a lot that we could discuss on that. This is just basically a placeholder to remind us that things are ever changing in the environment that we work in and that we live in. And I don't think we have to go much further than what we've all been living through here recently to understand that out of nowhere changes can occur that have significant impacts on the way that we work and the way that we live and the way that we enjoy our lives. So I think that we've come out of the exercise understanding that there are some things that we may want to change in how we're going about our working habits in Seneca County. This is just a quick list of how we went about making assessments on the projects. We certainly made building visits and site visits and tried to get our arms around the physical nature of the properties. And we had personal input from staff and brainstorming sessions. We looked at some industry standards as it relates to the usability and the assessments of buildings. What are the standards that industry uses generally speaking, and how do we measure up against that? And in some instances, then if we saw any kind of blatant building code issues through our visits and tours, we made note of that. I should point out at this point in time, and I think everyone understands this, that even though we have a pretty healthy amount of information in here on assessments and on the existing building conditions, this was never meant to be a down in the weeds, detailed analysis of mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems to the point of knowing what pieces of equipment might need to be replaced in the future and when. But our engineers did a great job in forecasting some of the hot spots that they saw in those assessments. And I think that information will be handy to John as he works through the day-to-day operations of the physical campuses. As Shane said, we really looked at the three areas of the county and their holdings, and we did start to define things by campus, because even though the buildings downtown there are other owners in between and other buildings, it does serve as a pretty compact real estate campus for the county's properties. I would point out that although the courthouse and the annex are in that portfolio, we did not evaluate those buildings simply because they were so new and there's such current information about them that it didn't seem prudent to even worry about those buildings at this point in time. So we only evaluated some of the other properties. You also mentioned the other locations. There's the emergency services building that you own that's not on one of those campuses in particular, and then the historical museum as well. So in terms of trends, this is something that I think the commissioners wanted us to comment on, and how the workplace is ever changing and what they might do to take a look at their existing work environment from office to office, department to department. And I think that there's a lot of change going on in the workplace. Prior to COVID-19, a lot of places were moving to more interactive open space where the environment was less about cubicle and breakdown of space for employees, but kind of cooperative open office environments where a lot of space and light was allowed to kind of freshen the workplace environment. We see those things still happening. It was interesting to me that even before COVID, we made a comment in here that was somewhat dated, because it was saying by 2020, the International Data Corporation was reporting that over 70% of US workforce would be mobile. And it's interesting because we were already witnessing and experiencing that ourselves, But with the onset of the COVID-19 and being having to force us to find creative ways to work, remote connections became critical, just like we're doing today with Zoom. And I think that coming out of this, and I think it was mentioned even by someone that sent a note to Stacy, that you know, this may change how we do things forever, even post-COVID, when things do get back to the new normal. There are opportunities for collaboration in workplace that would allow more flexibility of hours and regular office environments, and also for just having a cooperative interaction with our employees and fellow workforce without necessarily being in office environment. Now, that sounds like a cultural thing, and to some degree it is, because you know, we wouldn't have to have all the individual office space that we might have today. But I think what it also means as it relates to real estate is that we sometimes get thinking about head count and square footage and the relationship of building buildings and what that starts to equate to in terms of needing physical space. And in the future, I think that equation is going to change a little bit, because if we are in fact going to have a more mobile workforce, it could very well be that buildings are going to be purposely undersized for the number of people that might be employed there, because people can come and go, and you'll be seeing hotel docking space for people to use when they are in the office. And it would allow a, say, 100-person office to maybe be set up to have space for 70 people, because you're never going to have the 100 there all at the same time. So something to keep in mind as we move forward. We did do space efficiency assessment on a couple of the buildings, the ones that seem to be blatantly inefficient, and we included in the document an efficiency case study of the ag building that's out on the South Campus. And I think we've gone over this before, but the underutilization of real estate in there, the cost of upkeep of the real estate, mechanical systems that are undersized, and to some degree, certainly not up to the state of the art of equipment, is probably it's having the commissioners have to evaluate the value of having that much real estate and trying to keep that much real estate in operation on a daily basis. So we broke that down and looked at some of the inefficiencies of that space, and reached the conclusion that we could probably get a new building that would replace that square footage. And again, taking into consideration what I just said, for much less square footage than what the building is today, and probably house some other services on the campus that would be an upgrade to the campus environment. Within the document, we tried to look out in the horizon a bit and tried to capture what we think were some key areas of big ideas that you need to keep in mind moving forward into the future on the evaluation and the development and redevelopment and new development of your real estate. We broke those down just with some headers. Sustainable practices, that's a catch-all to some degree today. We could have economic sustainability, physical sustainability, environmental sustainability. In this case, I think we were looking at, as you evaluate space and utilization in campus and open space, that sustainability comes into the equation there for you to evaluate how that might better create an environment that's maybe more conducive for the active workplace, but also to start to represent steps towards the inefficiencies of a lot of open land. For instance, if sustainable landscaping can start to be put in place instead of lawn pads, it cuts down on mowing, it reduces the gas usage for the mowers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's kind of a domino effect to that. We think the campuses under campus enhancement, I'll just pick a couple things out here to talk about, because you can certainly get into the detail of this in the document. But the campus enhancement portion of this has to do with trying to help consumers that are using your services on a daily basis to better find things. And that kind of goes hand in hand with wayfinding. So downtown, for instance, we could start to come up with a palette, a kit of parts, if you will, that relates to the signage, relates to perhaps some lighting, relates to the holdings of the real estate, so that we can start to link that together a little bit more efficiently, aesthetically, and it certainly has a major functional aspect to it as well. The South Campus is, even though it's all on one location and there's certainly no other built environment around it, it does have its challenges on navigating the campus if you don't know where you're going. So these things could also play into the enhancement of that campus as well. And then I would mention on health and wellness that this is something that, you know, everyone is looking into these days. How can we make a healthier environment, a workplace? Again, post-COVID, I think you're going to see a lot of things moving in that direction that will start to relate to how our real estate is built, managed, and occupied. There are recommendations in the document that are overarching. Some are perhaps more detailed than others. But I think that some of the things that jumped out at us on the recommendations, one in particular had to do with just making sure that we don't lose track of auditing and inventorying information, both electronically and physical, hard copy of information that you have to retain on an annual basis, and not to get caught up in keeping everything forever, but try to figure out a way to go more electronic, to get rid of some of the burden of storage that you currently have in several of the facilities. And I think that that's something that we've had a lot of discussion about, and hopefully that's going to trigger a way for us to kind of evaluate those holdings. And if that means consolidation and building a new environmentally controlled facility so that we don't lose documents by destruction, whether that's mold, mildew, rain, etc., then so be it. But I think that you're going to have to really get very serious about the evaluation of existing facilities, the storage of those things, and even hard materials. I know John collects things, desks, chairs, file cabinets, things that are outdated or being replaced, and uses the barn out on the South Campus to load that up, and then on occasion loads it all up and takes it away. And it seems like it's a never-ending battle. So I would advise us to look at that fairly seriously here. And I know that there's a plan in place, by the way. I recognize that, but I think there's a seriousness that has to be approached. And certainly there are partners out there within the state, even the state historical center in Columbus has interest in helping you retain some of the files and storage that is of a historical nature. And that might be a partnership that you might explore on some of the materials. So within the document as well, we went into some scenario planning. This is not meant to suggest that these projects or these initiatives will happen tomorrow. It was a way for us to engage with you to kind of talk about some of the challenges of the campuses and some of the opportunities that the campuses might hold. So that obviously started with mapping and identifying where things were located, and then looking at routing and transportation and customers and consumers coming in and out of this facility. We thought that the South Campus was challenged to some degree because, you know, and I said this before without any disrespect, to come into the campus now is basically you're having to drive through incarceration. We've got jails and detention and those kind of things, which are obviously functioning well, but it's the gateway into the campus. So that being as it is, we're not suggesting those things get moved, obviously, but we would like to maybe take into consideration different routing systems and roadway network, especially if we look at replacing some of the buildings. This also includes an opportunity park expansion that could happen down to Infirmary Road. That's number 3 on there. I'm trying to use my cursor here, but it's not the arrow. So in any event, I think these diagrams are telling in that they're starting to talk about traffic, ease of access, consolidated, centrally located parking, and a way to kind of knit the campus together from a people and usability standpoint. Right now, it's the campus is very auto-centric, And it's not that these buildings relate to each other from a consumer or occupant standpoint, but if you work in that environment, you're really driving into the parking lot, going into your building where you work, and pretty much that's it. There's no campus, there's no way to get out, maybe walk around the campus, et cetera. And with all the land that you have, there's opportunities to maybe even create some educational opportunities that relate to Opportunity Park, the bike trail system that comes through the campus, and maybe even enhancing the old historic former hospital there on the campus is a iconic memory of what that campus once was. So this may be difficult to see on the screen where you are, I'm not sure, but there's vignettes in here that kind of suggest how the road network would work in this particular scenario A, and that we're suggesting that a new ag building be built into the other part of the campus. The engineers' headquarters and yard pretty much divide the two sides of the campus, and we think if the ag building were to come over to where the other consumer-friendly locations are on the campus, that we would then have a clear distinction between kind of the incarceration side of things, and of course the old farm homestead in the barns, and then the campus proper. So that was kind of the intent here. We also, going back to the sustainability piece, there's a lot of lawn to mow out there right now. And we think that maybe there's opportunities to look at sustainable landscaping that might lessen that burden. Scenario B was everything that you saw on the previous slide is included in this diagram, with the exception of this was indicating the potential of a whole new entrance into the campus off of 224 that would bring you in behind all the buildings with a more of a circuitous route in and bring you behind, so that the circulation is set up to be less conflicting with the circulation that's on Infirmary Road and Route 100. We had conversation about this. We think that it's something that the commissioners should consider for the future. It's not to happen today, but we think it could really bring a new enhancement to the campus. There are issues here surrounding a federal highway, accessibility, controlled in access, et cetera, et cetera. But we also know that the state of Ohio and the federal government are looking at a variety of ways to do sustainable environments and create enhanced roadways. And we think that this is something that would not only benefit the campus today, but if and when in the future, all of the balance of this real estate through the groundswell of growth in Seneca County, and we could be talking 25 to 50 years, there may come a time when that land that's behind all of this campus is going to become more valuable for some sustainable development versus just agricultural land. And so if that were to happen today, the only route that you could take into that development would be through this campus that already has a lot of circulation conflicts. So we would have to be building a new route back into that development. If this route were to occur off 224, it would set things up for a whole new entrance into development without any conflicts with the South Campus. So food for thought, something to keep in mind for the future, but you can see from this diagram how that would start to weave a whole new gateway in and around the campus, setting a whole different tone for accessibility. So come back to that for questions if anyone would care to ask. Then these are just other campus strategies that I've kind of mentioned in those overviews of the two scenarios, looking at that part of the campus for administration and educational services, the county engineers grounds in between the two, perhaps conservation, education. The barnyard could become part of an educational component, and look at some of the opportunities to bring Seneca County residents into a beautiful conservation area where education could take place and programs could be on hand, and it could really be a wonderful experience. And we've shown some examples of similar places in the document as well. This was just to suggest on the new ag and wellness building that we were forecasting how the architecture that right today might be a bit institutional in look, that perhaps something could be explored architecturally that could start to reflect on even the rural vernacular of the architecture of that of an era gone by. But this is a new modern building that has certainly the character of, in some of the forms of the architecture, how a new building can start to relate to those rural vernacular forms, at the same time providing contemporary space. We also explored, and these are just little vignettes that we talked to the engineer about, and certainly got some feedback from him. We think that the intersection, and it's no mystery to anyone, I think everyone agrees that the way Infirmary and Route 100 come together at this odd intersection is very challenging. Bus traffic, vehicles, blind spots, etc. So the thought was we wanted to go through some routing options to consider if this was something that the commissioners wanted to explore in the future. And this would bring things down to a direct intersection with 100 versus trying to do this very hard to navigate, is certainly for first-time users, that intersection. So these just show some intersection options. I didn't mention in the previous slides that we did integrate a couple of roundabouts into the campus. We think that that would help move traffic on the backside of the campus, and perhaps a roundabout out at Infirmary would make some sense too. But these are just options on how the access into that area could be enhanced. On the downtown scenarios, which is scenario C, we've identified sites and opportunities within the and I dwell on these, but I just wanted to refresh everyone's memory with this presentation, that we identified these sites as not only enhancements for county offices, but perhaps more importantly, to see how provide opportunities for the commissioners to consider real estate development partnerships, which is going on around the country and elsewhere, where the government is perhaps a key partner to a real estate deal versus trying to become the day-to-day owner and steward of that real estate. So we looked at the commissioner's site and the parking lot in an urban setting as it is kind of an underutilized piece of real estate. Yes, it serves as a parking lot, and certainly it serves as the commissioner's office today, but there's a higher density opportunity there that might serve not only the county, but the city and the others in the business district. That could make this an interesting development opportunity in the future. So there are different diagrams in the document that suggest several different approaches to this, but I just shared this one to kind of give you a sense of, what the possibilities are on that site. And of course, the site is at the corner of Madison and Jefferson. And in this case, the commissioner's offices could be moved up to upper levels. Retail or commercial development could happen on the ground floor. A sizable parking facility that's got the perfect geometry for a double bays of parking could be built there with ground floor commercial. And the parking lot that we have now, all of a sudden we could double or triple the amount of parking that we have on the site, plus bring more real estate into downtown that could offer development opportunities. So I know that I've worked long enough in Tiffin to know that there's certainly a lot of discussion on the ground about the enhancements of downtown, which you are a critical partner of, and it might be worth some consideration to sit down with TCEP and others and see what the possibilities might be for something like this in the future. That also includes even real estate that you don't own currently, but there's been study in the past on even the East Tower that Mr. Cano owns, and the consideration of how that building, now that East Green is completed and you've got a wonderful park downtown, and the East Green and the East Tower being right within what we're defining as the downtown campus of the county holdings, that there may be an opportunity to do a significant renovation on that building and move and consolidate offices into that. And then we also looked at the RTA site. These are all what ifs. That's why they are scenarios. There's nothing that has been put into this that suggests there's a premeditated development program going into our thinking on this. We were just trying to think strategically about what we believe to be as underutilized real estate. The RTA building, obviously, it gets beat up a lot in conversation. It's not exactly historically complementary to the surrounding context. Every day goes by, it gets closer to being a historic building, even though that's maybe to some people's taste not historic. But the idea was, if a renovation were to take place, we would certainly suggest a facade, as I call them, a facade-ectomy, where we would go in and remove what is there now and start to put a better looking facade on it that might be more complementary. But it's not just about the aesthetics, it's trying to bring the interior office space up to par. And I know John's worked hard at in making that a comfortable working environment. Lower level has some challenges because of some of the moisture, but he's working to improve all of that. So this is just meant to suggest, just like the commissioner's site, that if you were to look at this as an open piece of ground, what would you do with that ground today, knowing what we know? And so the idea was, could we start to look at a new building and surface parking, as well as perhaps even some adjacent parking. But my thinking on parking on this site is that if the commissioner's site was developed with a multi-story parking garage, that could really start to serve as a central parking location for much of your employee base, as well as consumers visiting downtown Tiffin. So again, these are what ifs to just kind of give you a sense of what we were thinking. So with that, I'm going to pause and just be happy to answer questions. The document has much more information in it than what we went through today, as you know, if you've leafed through it. And I know that you were getting bored with going through drafts, but I appreciate the time the Board of Commissioners have put into this. They didn't take this lightly, and they participated in numerous meetings and gave us feedback along the way. So with that, I'll take a breath and happy to answer any questions.
This is Charlene. I'd just like to thank Craig for all his hard work, and Christy as well. I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I'm really pleased with the outcome at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene.
Yeah, Craig, we've had several energy firms in. We had ABM that was in a few weeks ago that is conducting a study of all the buildings as far as basically the part that you didn't do. We've got some third-party people, and I know this is ongoing and been done a little bit before my time, but they're doing a thorough analysis of all our buildings as they sit now. And then that information will also be helpful along with this plan and our decision process as we go forward with the various buildings. Some the ag building's obvious, it's just old, and but there were a lot of I'm looking forward to reading that too, by the way, with some low fruit, the lighting, and there's low fruit things we can do, and then we got to look at the big picture on some of these buildings long term. And I think that will all come into this discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. In fact, I would love to see that document as well, and just kind of be able to give you some,
Good.
a little analysis on how the two could mesh together. And I know that John, when we were doing a lot of touring, there were a couple of buildings, maybe it was, and I sorry for the memory loss here, but there was an outsourced group, I believe out of Toledo, that was a energy monitoring group that either had provided proposal or was actually trying to work with one or two of your buildings at one point in time. And, evaluating the cost savings or the cost analysis on situations like that are critical. But I would love to see the document that you're referring to when it's made available.
Stacy, we'll do that. Okay. Yeah. Good.
So,
Yeah,
Craig,
and Craig, what that allows us to do is it allows us to bond out future savings and do capital projects. So no net cost to the county. So this exercise in inventorying our buildings and prioritizing is invaluable if we contemplate this next step, which would be to do some capital improvements. So, you know, that's how these things dovetail together and why we do planning processes.
I just want to give one more shout out to our engineer. Charlene, you were in the meeting. Craig, I know we all met with Mark. But right in the center of our South Campus sits the engineer's office. And Mark is just a wealth of knowledge. There's township roads, there's state roads, there's county roads out there. And I think there's some low fruit there. I think there's a lot of expertise and maybe some things we could begin to do in our discussion with routing traffic out there and planning ahead that would involve our engineer, who I think would be very helpful and also help us financially think through ways and how we could do it and partner with the state and his office and the townships. Without getting into specifics, I felt the conversation with him was very, he gets it and he likes the idea of us trying to do better as you're laying out. And I just want to make sure we include him in the going forward, because I think he'll be a big asset to us.
Yeah, we, you know, just a shout out to him and what he's built for you in Seneca County, because it's not often you see an engineer's office that's got fabrication capabilities and the ability to implement and help contain costs on projects. So
right.
I was really impressed with his entire operation. In addition to traffic, he's also very cognizant of some of the sanitary issues for sewer out there and some of the length of lines and some of the replacement of that infrastructure. It would probably be necessary on the South Campus if we're going to do some of the expansion and discussion. That would be the time to do it. So.
Yep. Thank you.
So Craig, this is Mike. Previous conversations, and I think probably the best practices based on some of those previous conversations with you and your folks would be that we have an idea as to what we would like to see in the future, rather than just respond and have to build a building because we need one, to know where to put it, to know what type of infrastructure needs to be in place. So at this point, if money were no object, I know that the cut through or the cut in off of 224 would be ideal. But which of the buildings, if you were master of this, would you replace first? And what kind of buildings would you put up? Which campus would you work on if you were us, south or downtown?
Mike, you were kind of breaking up. I think you said money is no object.
If money were no object, what would be your priority?
No object.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think I'll answer the question, but I would say that that's probably deserves a conversation amongst everyone as to, you know, what we would arrive at. But I think there's a couple of things that I would address right out of the gate. And I think that Mark could provide guidance on this. One would be to start to look at the road network and to make things easier and safer to migrate and navigate the campus. There's some simple things that could be done with that. I would investigate wayfinding. It's not a very expensive element, but I think it could add a sense of prestige to the campus, as well as provide necessary information for, again, consumers coming and going. I know that we're not a retail center, that you don't have customers coming in and out, but there's a significant amount of traffic that goes in and out of that campus, whether they're intending to go to a department, using Opportunity Park, going to the Ag building. There's a lot of traffic, and some of that is bus traffic and Ag vehicle traffic. And so I think wayfinding and road network would be something that should be explored. And in doing so, creating future development paths for other potential building projects. my first priority on that would probably be, as we were saying, to build a new building that would take the current occupants of the ag building and perhaps other elements. There's a little, I know you've got a campus gym out there that we've had discussions with a lot of people. And even though it's a free service to the county employees, it's not very conducive for use in terms of people coming either from downtown or even on the campus out there. So if there's a way for us to maybe look at a new facility that would not only include the functional aspects of the ag building, but perhaps some lifestyle kind of opportunities with a wellness center and perhaps even, event space. I know in the ag building, there's a large conference space that could get probably more utilization by people within the county if it were a better facility and had easier access and just had a better feel for itself. So in a new construction project, you could create an event space that could serve a lot of functions for the county, as well as potential revenue stream if that were desirable for other outsources of that use. And you could design a new building so that things like that could be very easily cut off and made secure from the rest of a facility. So if it's an evening function, it's not coming in the front door of a building and trying to navigate through hallways to get to the event center. It could have its own indoor, outdoor access. So I think that those three things would probably be my priority on the South Campus. And if Opportunity Park has an opportunity, no pun intended, to expand, I would certainly throw that in there as well, because that's part of the enhancement of that real estate. So that's maybe too long of a list, but I think if you get my drift, some of those things are kind of small muscle moves where others are larger. And so that would be my South Campus recommendation. Downtown, I think we probably don't need to discuss any further, but I think you just need to stare at the real estate that you have there and ask yourself the question, are we getting the most bang for the buck in terms of usability, density, opportunities for development within downtown Tiffin, and our own, selfishly speaking, function for the county? And maybe start to put some discussion out there with the likes of TCEP and others to just see what the possibilities might be for that commissioner site and parking lot.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Very, very good. Craig, you're aware that prior to COVID, we were in process of looking for funding for both Opportunity Park and for what is the health department building, right? You were aware of that, and that the Opportunity Park money it is still a possibility, but boy, that would really jumpstart that whole process by having outside funding for that. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we plan and look further out there at the South Campus. But
yeah, I agree with
this
that.
close to getting it. Yeah.
I think when the time comes for you all to start thinking about that again with Mark, the routing. Okay, good. The routing network, the road network, and so forth is something that shouldn't be a reaction to things later that are built. It should set the stage. It's kind of like a piece of real estate that a home builder might be putting a subdivision in. Well, they don't build houses first and then connect the roads. They put the road network in so that lots are created and development pads are created. And I think, that's what really could benefit you with the real estate out there. Obviously, with all the acreage you have, you could say that, well, it's unlimited and who cares? We'll just put another building down because we need this. But I think the more compact and condensed you can make your campus holdings up by Infirmary Road and 100 and 224, it just provides a healthier environment for people to navigate and an easier environment for people to navigate, and leave the ag properties to the rear for future development.
Good.
All right. Any other questions for Craig at this point? Okay. I appreciate it, Craig. We certainly have a number of good opportunities, and this is going to be a template for, a decade or so. So I appreciate all your hard work, and we look forward to the implementation.
Thanks so much. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you and the people that participated in all of this. And you've got my number and know where to find me if you just want to have some general conversation about this. I'm always happy to help you brainstorm through things.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Good. All right. So to close out the meeting, anything else for the good of the order?
Just a quick kind of question. I do have a couple appropriation adjustments in that are under my threshold to approve, but I just wanted to run them by you because it is a general fund department, and they're moving money from their contract services to their supplies. And I kind of asked if it was supplies related to COVID or if they were short on current supplies because of COVID expense. So I'm kind of waiting on that response, but I just wanted to know how you guys are feeling, being we did cut budgets. I just don't want to have a trickle effect knowing that they've moved money from a contract service line to the supply line and then all of a sudden need money in contract services. So I'm thinking it's for COVID expense, but it wasn't detailed on this. I mean, it is under my threshold, but I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that before pushing them through.
Yeah, Stacy, I think it's a slippery slope here, right? I mean, we've got a situation we've asked people to have willingly. I appreciate the cooperation, but on the same token, there's certain areas that are bringing people back earlier than we would like to back. And if they're using part of that 20% that we were supposed to be saving in the beginning, it just kind of get called something different. It makes it difficult to complete our mission. The idea to cut back early was to keep back early if possible. And if we start eating into that, it cause for a delay. And as Shane said, he'd like to get the people back early, and that's absolutely my thought too. Before we do anything with contracts, but if we approve things out of the money that was supposed to be cut back, that may very well delay that process. I don't know what these are, but we don't want to start playing that game. Silence fell upon the crowd.
Yeah, I guess my only thought is, we're trying to delegate as much of this to, the other elected, the other departments to manage their own budgets. I don't want to see a shell game, and we're seeing a little bit of that. But at the same token, if people have excess money in their contract services, or they're willing to cut back there, but they need supplies, I don't have the granularity of knowledge to know how their operations work. So I think there needs to be some flexibility in there to allow them to manage their budgets. Where it becomes problematic is if they overspend one line and then come back to us at the end of the year and we don't have the money to replenish the line that they overspent. So, I don't particularly like the shell game, but I also want to delegate to them as much flexibility as possible, knowing that they may end up at the end of the year short contract services. I think the cleaner way would be to come back to us and say, we're out of paper. We need paper, and we're certainly capable of making those supply decisions to keep county functioning.
Yeah.
So that's why we gave you that discretion, Stacy, so you can make those tough decisions.
Yep, and I could just keep on. Obviously I get the request for if I see the SUP app come in for contract services, then we'll have the conversation.
Okay, I appreciate you letting us know of your concern, and you know, we trust your judgment. That's why the level is there, right?
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? One last call for public comments.
Audrey has got her hand up there.
Okay.
Hey guys. Yeah, just a couple of updates from TSUP. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So we were able to help Clinton Heights announce a great expansion project. That's the golf course out in Clinton Township. They added a new practice facility and driving range. So that's the kind of rural development that we really love to be able to help them get the word out about. So that was a very exciting announcement this week. Amy is very happy to share that the DORA did pass on Monday night. So from now till the end of the year, we will be, implementing that new program. So I know she appreciated working with you all and your support on that. So that did pass on Monday. Then just a little reminder on some of the programs that are out there for businesses. The EIDL is open for all types of businesses now. And the PPPL will close next Tuesday, the 30th. So if you know any businesses that were considering taking advantage of that program, that will close next Tuesday. Actually today at noon, there is a webinar that a Cleveland-based organization is putting on about how to get access to that program. If again, any businesses are kind of considering that at the last minute. That's at noon today. There's information about that on our website and Facebook. There's also some new resources out there through USDA for rural businesses, and most businesses in our county do qualify as rural businesses. So that is another good resource that you can find out about on our website or Facebook. And then lastly, would like me to share that TPC had a large announcement last week. And that was a $1 million expansion project that will add at least 10 new jobs for TPC. So that was a really good kind of industrial project that we recently had announced. So I think those are all the updates from us at the moment. We look forward to giving you guys a full update at some point when we're back in person. But are there any questions for TSUP that I can help with at this point?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Anyone else?
Commissioner Ben again. I emailed to Jimmy, Nikki, and Stacy that list from the Ohio EPA about the disbursements for the Fostoria, Ohio Community Trust disbursements. So she has that. She can print that out for you. If anybody would like to see that.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, let it be noted that we pulled this off without Jimmy, so. All right, meeting is adjourned. See you next week.